Yeah, it's mindset cafe, we all got that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devin, and today we got a guest. We got Ryan Wimpey with us on the episode. He is the founder of Tip Top Canine Dog Training. They have 19 locations, and he's been dog training for over 18 years. So, we have similar businesses. I trained, people on their fitness and their habits, and canines are very similar. I got a dog, so this is going to be an interesting episode from not just an entrepreneur standpoint, but also how you build habits, one in a team with 19 locations, and also going into the mentality and everything with dogs. I know most people are dog owners these days. So Ryan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
So let's dive in, man. I mean, with 19 locations, you've been doing it for almost 2 decades. How did you get started in the canine industry?
So I got started. I had a bad dog. He had all sorts of behavioral issues, aggression, anxiety, potty training issues. And so I got obsessed with dog training and started reading everything, watching everything, traveling hours to meet with trainers. And then eventually I couldn't get hired anywhere. So I eventually worked for someone for free.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who trained your dog?
So I've trained my dog with just multiple trainers. My original dog, 18 years ago, his name was Curly. Multiple trainers in Oklahoma City and Tulsa region. And then I met with a guy, his name is Tim Smith. He's out of California. And he actually trained me more intensively, lived with me for 6 weeks, lived in Oklahoma. And then after I'd already been training for a few years, he helped me kind of really launch off.
That's awesome, man. Well, what were you doing before the dog training, and how did that, what was that pivotal point where you're like, I want to do this?
Yeah. So everyone in my family owns a business. My dad owns a business. My aunt and uncle, they owned 3 franchises in, it was like a Cartridge World thing. And so before this, I worked for my dad. It's a 54-year business. They eventually sold it. But I did purchasing. So I did purchasing. I did some sales, but it was mostly purchasing and sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so with, coming up from the entrepreneurial background, that must be super inspirational, seeing most of your family members do it, because it's a hard lifestyle to live, but not just your dad, or not just, one family member was doing it. You had multiple influences. So what were some of the things growing up that inspired you from them? Why did you want to take that path?
Yeah. Well, first, I think one big inspiration growing up is my mom did sales too. And so I remember it was what was it? 8th grade or something. They're like, hey, everyone's going on that class trip. And they're like, hey, you're not going unless you raise your own money. And I'm like, what? What? No, yeah. They're doing a fundraiser. And so they sold flowers and mums. And this is in, I don't know, the early 2000s, right? So I'm like, oh, they're like, if you sell enough flowers. And so I ended up selling a third of what the whole school sold. Because my mom is like, hey, here's what you're going to do. If you're going to sell 1 out of 4 houses, this is how many doors you need to go knock. We're going to practice your script relentlessly. And then I literally sold flowers for months and sold, 25 years ago, I sold $4,500 worth of flowers and then had to deliver them. But that was, So, my family, they talked business every night. Every night at dinner was business talk, every single night growing up.
That's crazy.
Gatherings the same because everyone had businesses. So I just grew up in that culture with those mindsets.
That's so awesome. That starting point is a lucky one, and you might not have felt it at the time.
Right.
But, nowadays people pay coaches to learn what your parents were able to teach you and instill in you. But also I think it's so cool because your parents could have just gave you the money and be like, okay, here.
That's what my friends' parents did. Yeah.
Right. And I think it's so awesome because they actually instilled look, you want this, you have to put in the work to reap the reward.
Right.
And a lot of days, or a lot of parents nowadays don't really do that. They just want to give their kids, a better life than they have, which is awesome. But you got to make sure that you're instilling those values, instilling those traits into them and those skills into them so they can build a life that they want. Right. because the real world is hard and it's tough. So, I mean, that's so cool. So I know you had a dog, Curly, and you had that inspiration. Did you have any businesses before the canine business, or was that your first one?
No, Tip Top was really our first one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people start off like myself. I started off with a t-shirt company in like high school, just selling shirts and, mainly not even making a profit and knowing how to track any of those things. It was just like seeing my shirt all around, Santa Clarita and especially my high school. I was like, oh, look, that's someone wearing my shirt. Oh, someone else is wearing my shirt, so that's awesome, man. With your dog and with you going into the business, what was that learning curve for you? I know you learned a lot of things from your parents, but when you launched your own business and scaling it to 19 locations, what was that initial reality check for you from being basically your parents' employee to, starting your own business?
Starting my own business was like this huge slap across the face that just kept happening like month after month. It was hard, man, because it's like, oh, I'm going to leave the corporate world. I'm purchasing in a cubicle or on the phone making sales stuff, And so I go from that to I have to figure out leads. I got to figure out how to deal with an accountant. I got to figure out SEO and ads. There was a lot to figure out. So I thought I'm just going to stop doing that stuff and just do my passion. But that's not real. That's not how it worked.
Yeah.
Right?
No, definitely. And how was it? I mean, training dogs is obviously hard, right? And believe me, I have a dog and I hired a trainer for him and everything. And I'm going to be honest, like I gave up on, continuing the training after the fact. But I mean, he's a great dog, but with teaching dogs and with being an employee and now you're managing a team, like you just said before this podcast, you were on a sales call that you do regularly with your team. How was that learning or that skills building for you from being taught to teaching?
Yeah. So, we reach out to sales coaches as well, executive coaches, franchising coaches. Like throughout the last 18 years, we're constantly reaching every few years to people that are already 5 or 6 steps ahead of us, right? Okay. No matter how high we're getting. So for a long time, I was traveling 2 hours to find the best sales coach or to meet with the best sales coach that we could find I live in Oklahoma, in Oklahoma City. There was an exceptional sales coach and we were driving once a week, 2 hours there for 2 hours, 2 hours back. But that's where I really learned how to really start to script stuff, really how to do high level consultative sales to where people don't feel like they're being sold, but it's like a smooth, easygoing process. I'm not the type, I'm not going to arm wrestle someone for, them to sign up for dog training. Like I want them to want it, but I want it to be a good, smooth process. And a lot of times when I'm training a salesperson, they've never done sales before. They don't want to feel salesy. And if they do, they start to have this personal discomfort because they signed up to be a dog trainer.
Yep.
So we have to do sales in a way that it doesn't come across salesy. Our typical, client may be a middle-aged soccer mom, right? So they're not going to respond well to that like high pressure sales stuff. Right. And someone who loves dogs and is fluffy, they're probably not going to want to do that stuff.
Yep.
Right. So it's evolved over the years. But basically, when I started, it was reading everything, but then reaching out and finding people that, hey, this guy's selling 100 or 200 grand worth of some product or service every single month. He knows what he's doing. He coaches other people to do the same.
So, I mean, I want to touch on 2 key things that you just said there too, is first off, you were hiring coaches, right? I mean, we launched the franchise for my boot camp model gym and we hired a coach, right? We hired a franchise coach. And just like yourself, I didn't just hire someone that, I found someone on Google. Like I actually did some research and I hired a coach that he actually launched his own franchise. He grew it to 400 locations and then got it acquired. And I was like, okay, well, he's walked the walk and I want to know what hurdles he overcame and he can condense my timeline. So when you're looking for a coach, because nowadays everyone's an Instagram, or social media coach, what is your advice for when you're scouting your coaches?
Yeah, ours is the same. So the lady that's coaching us right now, franchising wise, she grew over 20 years to 150 locations and then had to exit. Right. You don't grow to 400 or 150 locations by accident. So I'm not looking for how good their talk is. I'm looking for their actual past performance. Right. So one of the guys, 12 years ago that we did sales coaching with, he was one of the top sales guys for DeWalt and taught a lot at DeWalt Power Tools. Well, that's a big multinational company. So, I mean, they have very serious, legit sales training. So I'm looking for somebody that has a proven track record, right? That has also trained other people. Both, I think, is really important, because some people are really good doers, but they're not good teachers. So I want to make sure that I can reach out to some other people. And so, like, I had seen and met other people that had been coached by this sales guy. So that's what I'm really looking for.
No, that's awesome. And I fit right in the line with what you're saying on that. And it's funny that you say that, not every, like, think of it like sports. Not every key player is going to be an effective coach. They're different skills or different traits, but that applies into any area of life. Just because you're good at doing it doesn't mean you could teach someone else to do it. So that's awesome that you did say that. So your 19 locations, those are franchises?
Yes, those are all franchise, and we have one corporate store.
Nice. So how long have you been franchising for?
We've been franchising since 2019.
Okay. So still fairly new. I mean, that's awesome.
5 years.
Yeah, you're growing. You're growing fast. That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So with that being said, what are some of the hurdles that you've learned with, now you have your corporate store, obviously you have your trainers, and we'll dive into the sales aspect, because actually it's funny that you say that, because I mean, personal trainers, I have the same issue, with how I teach them and stuff, because they don't want to sell and they just want to personal train. But what hurdles have you overcome trying to basically talk to a franchisee or someone that wants to be a business owner, let alone just a dog trainer?
Yeah, so a lot of people want to be a dog trainer, but the business owner is obviously it's a different mindset. So our model is we're looking for people that maybe have no business background, probably similar to you. Hey, they want to get into the space, but they kind of need those guardrails. They need someone handling that back office stuff. So what we look for is someone who's like, hey, I want my work to equal my profit, right? I don't want to just pad someone else's bottom line. And hey, I understand it's going to be, any business is hard work. And then what we do is we answer the phones, we do their marketing, we do their billing and their product support, and then, multiple conferences a year, training phone calls as far as for dog training, sales, and for business coaching once a month. So we're trying to take that person that doesn't have any experience in the industry, give them that back office support to where they do their role, right? Similar to you. You have a trainer, he comes in, he's not going to necessarily know anything about Google and Facebook ads, et cetera. They're paying that royalty for that 18 years experience, just starting day one, right?
Yep. I think that's awesome. I mean, yeah, we definitely have similar franchisees in that aspect. I mean, our model, similar to yours, is built so that, you can let it run with you there, without you there, but you need those, guardrails and also that support system. Right. And similar to how you're doing it with like the calls and the trainings, all that stuff. We do the same things. So that's so cool. Nice. That you guys have grown that way, because you guys are creating like almost not even just a franchise, but what I tell people is like, it's almost that mastermind or that networking group on top of the franchise, right? It's not just here's a blueprint and, have fun or good luck. Like you guys are really involved. And I think that's so crucial. And that's awesome, because you're building such a strong foundation.
Yeah. When I started, probably like same with you, it was lonely. I don't have anyone to reach out that's not necessarily in my niche. Like I had one guy that was like in my area, right? And so I could ask him, and if he's busy, I'm screwed. I got nothing, right? And so now, like we had a sales call before this. So it was an hour long, and I had like 7 locations on there with either the owner or a top manager, their sales manager. And so they're giving each other ideas, and then they know who's where they're at. So we have an intro call for newer people, and then we have an advanced sales call. And they have this mastermind peer group too. So obviously I'm facilitating it, but offline, those people are calling each other after appointments, and they're not waiting the whole week. They're saying like, hey, Mike, I just ran into this issue. I know on the sales call with Ryan, you said this. What do you think about that? And when we build that like peer group, I think it's way more powerful, because if I say something, they're like, yeah, cool, that works for him. He's got all this experience. Oh, that works for his team, but that's because they train with him. They're like the best. That's where everyone goes for training. But how's that help me? But if they get that from someone else who's only been in the industry for 1 or 2 years, it almost impacts them at a different level from the teacher saying it than, another student or however they perceive it.
No, I definitely agree with that. It could be the same exact message, said the same exact way, but it's the person that it's coming from, right? That it just holds different weight. And I think that's so cool that you guys are almost doing these accountability groups, and support systems internal inside your guys' franchises. That's, where the real support and connections are made. And that's awesome. So with that, being said, why did you choose dog training?
I was obsessed with dogs, man.
I
love dog training. When I go to someone's house and I would take their dog that's like jumping on their cabinets, eating their food, getting their couches muddy, knocking over their children, it's stuck in the backyard because he can't walk on a leash, right? And if they open their front door, he run away. And I take that dog, and then in 2 or 3 weeks, he now listens. Maybe it takes 4. But now he can go everywhere. He can go to the soccer games. He can go on walks. He can be inside with company. When I take the dog from out of control to under control and ostracized from the family to now he gets to live with the family, people love their dog again. And it just makes a better life for the dog and a better life for the people. And seeing those results in a short time frame is really fulfilling. It's really, really exciting. And I just got hooked on it.
No,
also, it's also pretty, our packages, our average sales are around $2,000 to $2,400, depending on the location. So it's pretty lucrative too.
No, definitely. I believe me. Like I said, I had a dog trainer, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
But the pricing, honestly, it's very similar to personal training, and it's like, so all those pricing, and even with the trainer that we had, he was a great guy. But it's crazy how similar personal training and dog training were when I was talking to him, and how he programs it and all these kind of things. So I assume, and we'll definitely have, another call or something where we can connect on, just franchisor to franchisor. But I assume like there's going to be a lot of similarities in the fitness industry and the dog industry, because you're servicing a client and all those kind of things. But I have a blue nose pit, and he is
nice.
One of the best dogs. Like, we have a 2-year-old, and
nice.
She can pull his tail. He is completely fine. Like, he doesn't do anything. But what's crazy is we got the dog trainer originally when my wife got pregnant, and she could walk him and it was no problem. He was never, dog aggressive or anything like that. But the moment she got pregnant, he became, if I wasn't out there, he became so protective. It was crazy. And it didn't matter if the dog trainer was there or not. No one could walk next to or by my wife without my dog like stopping and just like staring the person down. And then once my daughter came along, same deal. Like, I was like, so if I walk him, no issues. I was holding my daughter in one of those carrying things, right? Yeah. And he's never, lunged at anyone or anything like that. And then this guy, as I was walking down the street, and honestly, it's the guy's fault, because he leans into, like, I wasn't even looking at the guy. He leans into my daughter and like gets in her face and like waves. And so that I stepped back and I was like, what are you doing? And as I did that, my dog got lunged. I obviously pulled him before anything happened, but I was like, that was crazy to see, because I've never seen my dog any form of aggression, and he was like, don't mess with my little girl. So I think, have you seen like that happen with other people where all of a sudden, like, the wife gets pregnant, or the girl gets pregnant, and then the dog's personality switches?
Yeah, hey, dad's here. I got nothing to protect. Everything's good, But then, they feel that once the dog, especially if it's an adult dog and he's connected to the family, them guarding mom or guarding the little kid is super normal, depending on, some of those guardian breeds, whether it be a pit bull or shepherd, Rottweiler. That's not, being territorial or resource guarding mom or the kids, pretty normal.
No, yeah. It was just funny to see, because, and he's still, anyone can come, like, if you come in the house, you're cool. Like, he'll bark, and once that door opens, his tail does the spin wag, right? Yeah. And everything like that. But it was crazy to see all of a sudden this protector side come out in him, because I was like, what the heck? Like, you got that, man. You're scared of the dishwasher. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. But that's awesome, man. So how is it going with, dealing with different personality types, and how have you evolved your mindset? Because, being a business owner, and then now talking about different locations, you're dealing with other alpha or, alpha status people that are business owners also. How have you had to evolve your mindset in dealing with those kind of individuals?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when you go from owner to franchisor, and you go from clients and employees to franchisees, it's a completely different mindset. It's not that parent-child relationship, right? Mm-hmm. These are owners, and I'm like supporting them.
Right.
So with the franchisees, they're owners. I'm supporting them and I'm encouraging them on their goals. Where my employees, I tell them what I need from them, right? The franchisee, if they want to be an owner operator of a Tip Top Canine, or if they want to have a small staff or a big staff and do multi-units, I'm going to support them on their goals, but I'm not making their goals.
Right.
If they're happy with a certain level, then obviously we're going to encourage them to the moon. But the mindset is a little bit different. It's more of that servant leadership role where I'm here to make sure and support them. I want them on the Tip Top brand long term. It's a long-term relationship, right? And I want to continue that as long as possible. My success is tied to theirs, but at the same time, it's their business. They get to call the shots on it, on how they operate. If they're, they want to be closed Tuesdays, they can be closed Tuesdays, but their costs are still going to be the same. And so when we business coach them or they come to our conferences, we want to grow them and grow those mindsets, but at the same time, we're not telling them how to think.
Oh, that's interesting. So you allowed them to, have different hours and, make their own business. Oh, that's interesting. That's cool. I like that. I like that concept.
The structure is going to stay the same. So whether they're a owner operator or whether they have 3 employees and whether they do 20 grand or 100 grand a month, I mean, some of their cost structures are going to be the same, but it depends. We have people literally running. So like they'll run the same gross revenue, so say like 50 grand a month as someone else, but then have half as many employees. And that owner pushes harder and he has people that push harder and he pockets a ton more cash. And the other lady, maybe she has more freedom goals. She wants to work 25 hours a week.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So support those people on their goals, regardless of what those are.
No, yeah, that's awesome. And for me personally, like I know from being like when me and my business partner opened the gym, like we didn't have any employees and then he was never an entrepreneur. So I was coaching him on being an entrepreneur, but having to explain the reasons why. And it was like my first level in like dealing with like an employee, even though he wasn't an employee. But then when we got employees, it was like, okay, now I have to think about everything differently. I had to train the employees, obviously like they're employees, but then I had to train him on how to train the employees. And now we have a manager that runs the gym most of the time with my business partner. So then it's like, I'm training him on how to manage the manager. And then I'm training the manager on how to manage the employees. And then I'm training my business partner on how to manage the manager, and it's all these different levels. And it's crazy because it's an evolve, like you adapt and you evolve as you scale. And just like anything, how you grow now or the person you are now isn't going to be the person you are in 18 years, like yourself.
Right.
When you first opened up your business, like if you told yourself that you were going to be doing this and how would you talk to this person, you'd like, what do you mean? So it's crazy the way we start to evolve with our business and with our roles as they grow. Yeah.
I realized, over the last 2 years, I went from training dog trainers to training business owners to now training multi-unit operators, right? Okay. And so training bigger business owners where people they need big facilities, they need big staff, or they're managing 2, 3, 4 territories. So it's a different mindset from, hey, everyone's kind of like probably with your model, they're starting owner operator and then they're managing possibly multiple locations. And so for someone who's never owned a business before, growing that person's mindset over a few years, that's kind of where we're currently at.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your biggest hurdle on, when you first launched the franchise? Like what was whether it was personal, whether it was the business?
Yeah. Well, so we actually licensed for 2 years before franchising.
Okay.
So we licensed 5 corporate stores first for 2 years. And then we franchised 4 of those. So we worked out the kinks for 2 years before franchising to make sure all that model was pretty tight and solid. So then once we franchised, we know that, hey, everything's going to be pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing in that 2 year period, though, not to dodge your question, was really we needed more initial training and more support. So what we ended up from that initial 2 year is, hey, these first time owners, we need to answer their phones. And then we created a product center because even though I gave people a Google Doc that's like 20 pages long, here's how to order everything from everyone, right? We ended up taking it back. We order everything for everyone at like deep discount and sell to them at wholesale for like a super small markup. So where it'd be the same price as if they got it because we're a national account. So I mean, even the flyers, the shirts, everything. And then we extended our training from 4 weeks to 6 weeks. So we train our locations initially for 6 weeks, 6 days a week. So we started with 3, 4, and then we went to 6. That's kind of great. They needed even more training in the trade.
Okay, so that meaning that you're actually at those locations, or you mean like before the locations are open?
Before the locations are open, they come to corporate for 6 weeks of training. So about 300, and it's a lot of hours of training.
Okay, I mean, at the end of the day, like training is what's going to make the business successful, right? So that's it. As painful as someone might, see it, it's like this is what you're learning. This, like you're paying all this money to get into the business. Like we're teaching you how to do it, and you're coming onto the team. And like you said earlier, your success is our success. So we want to make sure that you're successful. So I mean, that's awesome. You being in Oklahoma, I mean, I think one of the beneficial things, I was looking on my list behind me, you're not in a registration state, right?
No.
So I'm in California, and that was definitely one of the hurdles that, we got hit with right in the beginning. Yeah. And one of the lessons that you learn in business that you don't know until it happens was we launched at the end of the year. Well, I didn't know you had to re-sign every single year. And so we got hit with the renewal right in the beginning of the year. I was like, why didn't someone just tell me to wait a couple more months and then launch? Like that one sucked. But no, man, that's awesome. So what states are you in besides Oklahoma?
So we're in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Michigan, Idaho, and Arizona.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Utah.
Okay. Wow, man. That's awesome. So you're really going
right now. Should be in California soon. We've just had so many leads from California that we had to register. Yeah,
that's what happened with Washington, and we're in the registration process with Washington right now. So that's awesome, man. Congratulations. It's a huge accomplishment. People don't realize that, like, when you say you're going to franchise your business, like how much work actually goes into launching a franchise and continuing to adapt the business model, and so that it can continue to scale. So I think that's a huge accomplishment. I mean, believe me, like I'm in the stages before you, and I know what you've been through already, and it's
right.
My hat's off to you for getting to where you are right now.
Yeah, I think that startup phase with just all the FDD and the agreements is just mind numbing. Just 10 hours a day on contracts is crazy.
Yep. Well, great. How is your personal development? I know, like with the business and with everything, you learn those skills, but how has your own personal development played a role in the growth of your business?
Yeah, I mean, I try to take time and work out 3 times a week with a personal trainer, right? Okay. Obviously, I think that's important. And, spend time with my family. I used to just always burn, right? Just always on it. But I have 2 kids, one's 4, one's 6. And I have a good team, like at corporate. We have 32 employees here at my location. So we have a big support team. And so I don't have to work 60, 80 hours a week right now. Now, when locations are here training, I'm doing more. And when they're not, I'm taking time and making sure I'm spending time with my wife, with my kids, etc. But really, personal development wise is continuing to work out. There was a time when I didn't work out for like 5 or 6 years. Right. And then I got the aches and the pains and everything. I think that's huge. And just if you have a strong body, it just helps that mindset. Obviously, I'm preaching to the choir there. Yeah. And then just, being at church regularly, that's huge. And reading the word, man.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. No, and people don't realize, I actually talked about this, because when I launched the franchise part, like I had stopped working out myself because I was spending 10 hours, 15 hours a day. Yeah. And so, especially when the gym launched, we were moving like fast with the franchise and from our gym launch and all that stuff. And it was like, I stopped working out because of just trying to get everything built and doing stuff. And so I lost a bunch of muscle and a lot of weight. So once I got back into that reality check for myself and got back into working out, people are like, damn, are you on like steroids? Like, what's happening, man? Like, no, this is my normal size. Like actually, I wasn't leaning out. Like that was just me deteriorating. So it's huge. And it's a huge piece of, being a business owner is like, one, it's stressful. And if I were to tell myself, go back in time and tell myself at that stage, like make some time to work out, make some time to do those things, like I guarantee like it would have been a lot less stressful because you have that outlet, right? You have that source of decompression. You mentioned that, you have a wife and kids. One thing I like to ask entrepreneurs, because I'm very curious about this, is how have you been able to incorporate them into your life, knowing that business does take up a lot of time, and how have you been able to, make sure that you're not losing the connection with them while you're building this thing?
Yeah, well, so my wife actually works with me. She manages the call center, the corporate location, and then the product team. So she's actually managing most of the people while I'm like working on systems or marketing or actually training people. So that's one way. She's in the office quite a bit, so I'm still, connected with her quite a bit. And then my kids, they actually like to train dogs. So like I'll train like our dogs in the backyard with them, and they actively want to engage with it. They like it.
That's awesome. How old are they?
4 and 6.
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah. So you're not too far off from mine. She'll build 3 in January. So, I think that's huge, because that's the reason I was asking that, is because a lot of entrepreneurs, as we talk about it and their stresses and stuff from their business, they basically leave it at business and then they go home. Yeah. But you got to realize that you're lucky enough to have your wife and your kids involved in some form or fashion, but there's a disconnect, or there can be a disconnect. So letting I tell people that let your wife in, let your kids in a little bit. Obviously, you don't need to tell them every stress and strain of the business, but let them give you advice. Whether you use the advice or not is, up to you, but let them feel like they're contributing to the growth, right? They don't know the other half of your life that's going on unless you let them in, right? So letting them feel like they're helping you can alleviate some of that stress or strain on the relationship, right?
That's good.
So, but I think that's huge. Has your wife always worked with you in the business, or was there a point?
No, before, let's see. When she came in, she was helping one of my buddies. He has local gyms in Tulsa. He has like 4 or 5, a chain of 4 or 5. And so she was helping him grow. And then I was like, hey, you're going to have to stop helping Whitney, and you're going to have to come work with me. Right. And then that's when, so she came and she started managing everything. And then I literally built out the systems. And then 2 years later, we licensed, and 2 years later, we franchised. So she was a big part. Rachel was literally a huge part in us being able to franchise, because she's a good people person. She's a manager, and she's really good at growing people. So her implementing management systems and organizing everything was really what helped us scale.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How important do you think like systems and processes are for a business or for a new business owner to be able to scale?
If anyone wants to scale, they have to have systems and processes in place. So what a franchise is basically tons of really dialed in systems and processes that have already been gone through a ton of people and are proven to work. So if someone's just starting out, as soon as they want to hire employees, they need to start making systems, right? They need to start saying like, hey, this is how you open the gym. This is how you close the gym. This is how you wipe down weights, right? And then we want to dial it in. So when the first employee I trained in, I think it was 2010 or so, he really took me like 6 months to get him good. And now we're getting people good in 5 and 6 weeks. But that's because I have, an 80-page manual and multiple different playbooks, right? All of my people too also know how to teach. So we're drilling them with a system. Everyone's doing the exact same thing. And so they know how to teach the next person the exact same thing.
No, that's awesome. That's huge. Yeah. And no, I agree. I mean, what I realized once I stepped away from the gym and my business partner was running it, there was a dip period for a minute. And it was because the things I was doing when I was in there, I thought they were common sense or common knowledge. And then I realized, I had this realization. I was like working out, and I realized it's only common because I know it or I learned it. Right. But so it's only common knowledge to the person that knows it, right? So that's what systems and processes really do, is like it gives what you think is common knowledge to the people that don't know it to make it common knowledge for them, right? So what I like to do is, before we wrap up a little bit, is I want to ask, I have to preface this. This is not a tombstone, right? There's a legacy wall, right? Everything that you built, the franchise, everything, hypothetically, it gets erased. Now, on this legacy wall, it says your name, and then under it has one message that you've learned through your entrepreneurial journey, your personal development journey. What would that message be to someone up and coming?
Whew, that's super deep. I think that message would probably be something along the lines of care, because if you don't, no one else will.
Okay. Explain a little bit.
Yeah. So a lot of times, whether it's in sales or whether I'm training someone, like managing someone, etc., they need to know that I actually care about them as a person and not just that process, and that they're just like a little cog in the process. Mm-hmm. Or my franchisees, they need to know that I actually care, or else they're not going to care about their people. Right. So if my employee doesn't feel like I care about them, they're not going to care about other people. My kids don't feel like I care. My kids aren't going to, they're not going to love other people. They're not going to connect with other people. So I think right now, everybody's really tech heavy. Mm-hmm. And also in the entrepreneur world, if some people get real process heavy, they don't want to just look at the people like they're little chess pieces. You just move them around. Like you got to care about people. They're humans. They have emotions. They have baggage. They have issues, just the same as all the rescue dogs we train, right? And they kind of need that care and concern. They need to know someone actually gives a crap, and that you actually see them for who they are. And I think sometimes in our tech-heavy society, that's getting missed a little bit these days.
100%. And I will agree with you on that 1,000%. And that's how your business is going to grow, right? Because if you care about your team and you're doing things for the benefit of them, they're going to do things to benefit the clients, the customers, and also the rest of the team, and it's one of those things where that's where the culture is built. People ask, how do you build company culture? It starts by just caring about the customer, caring about the team, caring about the business, and not just, not being one of those business owners where you're like, I have 1,000 people that can replace you, that want your job. If that's the environment you're building, then why are they going to care? Like they don't feel important, right? So I think that's an awesome, awesome legacy. Well, that's actually the first time that someone said that. So that's huge. That's so cool, man. Well, how can people connect with you? What are what's your website for the Tip Top
Canine? Our website is tiptopcanine.com. It's tiptopk9.com. Like I said, we've been head down grinding on franchising for a long time. I'm now on LinkedIn after being on too many podcasts where people are like, hey, why are you not on LinkedIn? So I'm now on LinkedIn. So please add me on LinkedIn, message me on there, go to the website. If you're interested in franchising, fill out the form, come out for Discovery Day and see what the dog training is all about.
Awesome. And I'll go ahead and put that in the show notes as well. And then what is your personal Instagram if people want to connect with you?
I'm not on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn only.
Okay. So what is your LinkedIn?
Canine at Tip Top Canine is the Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. And then my LinkedIn is just Ryan Wimpey.
All right, perfect. I will put that in the show notes. Make sure you guys connect with him, and I guarantee if you guys have a dog, you'll get at least some information from his social media. But if you guys are interested, click the link in the show notes and fill out the form, and learn what he has to offer. But Ryan, thank you so much for hopping on today and spending the time.
Man.
Because I know as an entrepreneur and as a franchisor, your time is precious. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Just in the game of life, mindset causes shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slack.